Hello, hello, hello. Great to be with you on this day, April 21st, 2025. Pope Francis has died today. Pope Francis of Argentina. Maybe one of the most progressive popes of all time. Certainly one of the most progressive popes of modern memory. Who's in the chat? Ice Cream is here. John Cole is here. Philip H. is here. We are live, Abe. Hello, JoJo Star. How's everyone doing today? Hello, Dennis. Abe says, as a Catholic, this one hurts. Yeah, I'm not even Catholic, and I feel sad about it. He was a pretty amazing human being, you know? Hello, Thomas, Vladimir. How are you all doing today? Now, to folks who usually watch me, I am going to have a little bit of change in format. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been doing these sort of typical current event political streams where I sit here and I review the news and I watch videos about the news, and it's very timely. But I think I'm not enjoying that. I think sitting here and watching CNN videos of talking heads is not that interesting to me, so I can't imagine it's that interesting to you. And I think there's already a lot of political streamers who do that, and I don't even find their content that engaging anyways. So what I'm proposing to do is on Monday and Wednesday, I will have these sort of discussion debate streams where we pick a topic and we have, you know, most podcasts and shows base their shows on guests, right? And whatever their guest is an expert in, or whatever their guest does, that's what they talk about. But I find it very interesting to just talk to the people in the chat. And the other day when we were having that whole debate about AI, I found that very interesting and enlightening. And I found it fun. And I thought, why don't I structure my lives around something like that? I pick a topic, we have a discussion, a debate, Q&A, polls, and we revolve the show around that. So like today, it is a little bit focused on current events and news, as in, you know, the Pope died today. The show's about the Catholic Church. But some days it might just be about music, film, history, geography, anthropology, culture, food. It might not have any sort of topical news or current events subject. Think of it sort of more in the vein of John Oliver, where he kind of picks one or two topics and he discusses those. But again, I find the people in the chat to be very smart, very engaging. Instead of spending all my time and energy on trying to get guests or experts, et cetera, I think it's interesting to have a discussion and debate with the chat themselves. And I'm not presenting myself in these as an expert at all. I'm not an expert in religion, for example. But I'm presenting myself as someone who's curious and someone who wants to explore. And I think it'll be interesting and engaging if we do that all together, right? That's sort of what my take is. And some of these Monday, Wednesday streams might be a little bit shorter, 60 to 90 minutes, to keep it a little bit tighter and on topic. And then, so Monday, Wednesday will be the discussion debate streams, right? Tuesday, Thursday will be post-show after Lickman Live. We will talk about politics, but it's more of a chill politics chat. I kind of just take answers as they come from the chat. And then Friday and weekends will be gaming streams. So that's how I'm setting it up. Never Froggy says, one day the topic can be oil lamps. Absolutely. Ice Cream says, who's going to replace the Pope? That's a good question. John Cole says, I'm not that interesting, and I certainly don't have expertise in anything. One, I think you're more interesting than you think. Two, I'm not looking for expertise. I'm just looking for a conversation from your perspective. That's it. You don't need to be an expert. So today, the main topic is the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not Catholic, but religion is something, I've always been interested in, theology, generally speaking. And today seems like the perfect day to talk about specifically the Catholic Church. Will they survive in the 21st century? What's the future of the Catholic Church? I think that Pope Francis did a great service for the Catholic Church, but who knows what's going to come next? And I mean, if you're listening from the United States or Central South America or Europe, even Africa, I mean, Catholicism has a huge influence on all those regions of the world. So, I mean, it's shaped like 2,000 years of history, right? So I'm going to start today's topic with an opening poll. So what I'm going to be doing on these discussion debate streams is I'm going to be doing a lot of polls and a lot of Q&As to get your perspective too. So I'm going to be posing questions to you guys, and I'm going to be posing polls to you guys and sort of using that as a way to advance the discussion. Hold your questions for now. I don't know. I'm also just trying to figure out the structure of this and how it's going to work. See a very good question from Joshua D about do I think followers will accept change like accepting gay marriage? I think we'll get into that in a little bit. So hold your questions. Maybe I don't want to discourage questions, but we'll get to that. So the first poll question is, I'm just curious about what the audience, so what describes your relationship to the Catholic Church? I'm curious how many Catholics we just have in here. Again, I am not Catholic, and I am not speaking from the perspective of a Catholic, but maybe some of you are, or maybe a lot of you aren't, and we're just talking from outsiders. So the poll would be, I'm Catholic. I used to be Catholic. I'm Christian, but not Catholic, or no connection at all. So like the no connection option could be an atheist, an agnostic, a Buddhist, a Jew, just, any of the above. The poll is live. And obviously, if you used to be a Catholic, but you're now agnostic or an atheist or another religion, you would pick, I used to be Catholic. Nan B says, many people find comfort and meaning in religious beliefs, particularly when there is hardship and uncertainty. Therefore, religion will never die out. That's an interesting perspective. I don't necessarily think religion will ever die out, but its influence, already has lowered tremendously. And the internet says, but it's a difference between being a Catholic in Germany or the US. Are you asking that, or are you stating that? John says, maybe the Catholic Church will move like the rest of the world and move right. Maybe. That's a big topic of discussion, is what's going to happen now to the Catholic Church now that Pope Francis has passed. Obviously, his legacy is going to be, I think he's going to be remembered pretty well. He was fairly progressive. He cared about environmental issues. He really reached out to marginalized communities. He was a big advocate for human rights, immigrant rights. I know he talked about often, I think right before he died too, he talked about a ceasefire in Gaza. Who's going to replace the Pope? That's That's the $1 million question. The producers of Conclave must have known something, guys. That movie is too timely. Internet says, it was my experience in Germany. I'm Catholic more on paper. It's not spiritual thing over here. I would say that counts as Catholic. Like if you're still consider yourself a Catholic, maybe you're not as spiritual as or religious, but you're still Catholic. I would choose I'm a Catholic. That's just my perspective, though. The other thing about Pope Francis that's interesting is that although he was very progressive, he still had some the limits to his how do I say this word? Progressives. There have been 226 popes throughout history. That is pretty amazing. Vladimir says, I was raised Christian, but I'm now a bigger believer in science than in religion. The former has a much more reliable track record of advancing and uniting humanity than the latter. So, some of Pope Francis' limits to his progressivism include the ordination of women. He remains firm on the church's stance against ordaining women as priests. He strongly opposes abortion, though he speaks more in terms of compassion and healing rather than condemnation. LGBT plus rights. So while he promoted compassion, he never changed his core teachings or church doctrines regarding sexuality. But he did say famously in 2013 about LGBTQ priests, who am I to judge? Which is a pretty stark contrast to the past. Philip H., I don't know what you're saying right now, bro, in the chat. Overall, I think he was a pretty great man. Our next poll will be, so 33% of people watching are actually Catholic. So the majority of folks watching are Catholic. That's interesting. I'm interested to see your perspective on this topic moving forward. 30%, so 63% of people watching either are a Catholic or used to be a Catholic. 10% are Christian but not Catholic, and 27% have no connection at all. That's interesting. Jeanette says, I'm Catholic but a rogue one, as I firmly support LGBT plus community, and I'm pro-choice. I think you can, especially in this modern age, I think you can be all those above. I think you can still be Catholic and believe in LGBT plus rights and be pro-choice. Our next poll is, what's the biggest challenge facing the church today? What's the biggest challenge facing the church today? Scandal, generational gaps. It'd be interesting to also see if they pick a younger pope and how young. Philip says, I heard Drake was running for pope. Orthodoxy will sweep Western Europe. That's an interesting perspective. LGBTQ plus and abortion stance, or loss of relevance in modern life. So as you can tell, I've prepared this a little bit tighter than my usual news live streams. So these are some questions that I've already written down. I'm curious to see what your all perspective is. Then it says, Benedict and to a large extent Pope John II were extremely conservative. Francis was fairly progressive. What will the future hold, especially if the next pope comes from a non-European country? Political Palace says, who is the next pope? We don't know yet. They have to pick one. Anthony says, my brother is a devout Catholic and didn't like the Pope's very left leanings. He also voted for Trump, which explains a lot. Yeah. There are people who did not like Pope Francis. There's no doubt. They thought he was way, way too progressive. Wow. Loss of relevance in modern life is way ahead in terms of what's the biggest challenge facing the church today. Scandal is lowest. LGBTQ plus and abortion stance is second, and generational gap is at 20%. The biggest scandal is still the child sex abuse and its cover-up. I agree with you, Bob. I totally agree with you. I think that tarnished the church a lot. All right, I am going to be taking advantage of the Q&A feature. I've never used it before, but let's try. So my question to you is, what's one thing you wish the Catholic Church would change? What's one thing you wish the Catholic Church would change? Start Q&A. Again, I've never used this before, but let's see how this goes. I guess if you, I don't know on your end how you answer it. Try to answer it in the Q&A thing I just posted and not just in the chat if you can. I'm not exactly sure how that works yet, but we'll figure it out. Philip H. says that the biggest challenge is definitely a loss of relevance. Also, religion and religious groups and religious governments have worked 0 times in history. Governments without religion tend to last longer and be more humane. Vladimir says, in my opinion, religion is best described as a double-edged sword, capable of both great healing and great harm depending on interpretation, as shown throughout thousands of years of history. Can you guys respond directly to that Q&A thing? Has anybody tried that yet? I think Amber did. Amber says, why does the church still regard women as being inferior? It makes 0 sense. I agree with you. It does make 0 sense. A lot of people are, you don't see for the Q&A. I can't see it. It might not work on mobile. That's the only issue. That sucks if that's true. Michael Yu says women's rights. Nambi says women should be priests. It's not a boys' club. Michael Yu says I was raised as a Catholic and as a kid more agnostic. Scooby Snack says being more activist with poor and disempowered people, use the vast wealth to supplement government programs. Angus, I have no clue how to use the Q&A. It does work on mobile. I'm seeing some people come in. Philip H says, I don't want to be mean, but they need to let their priests, have love so they don't take it out on innocence. I agree with you. I think, I don't know. Celibacy is such a core value of priesthood. It seems kind of... The poll's blocking it. All right, let me end this poll. So, what's the biggest challenge facing the church? Loss of relevance in modern light is way ahead at 46%. LGBTQ plus and abortion stances 29%. Generational gap of 14% and scandal at 11%. Let me end that poll. Maybe the Q&A will pop up. Me Want Taco says the one thing they would change about the Catholic Church is their abortion stance. No matter who's the next pope, I don't think that's going to change. You know? Joe Star says, I think they need to be more open-minded about LGBT and abortion stances. Glitter Girl says, the hypocrisy in the church is tough for me. Yeah, it's tough for me too. No doubt. I mean, I'm not even religious, you know? Inlay says, Pope Francis has consistently called for the end of laws that criminalize homosexuality, stating that they are unjust and that LGBTQ plus people should be accepted and be treated with respect. I agree. Yolanda says, allow priests to marry. I hear that too. I know like Greek Orthodox priests can marry, right? And pastors can marry. You know, I think others would probably argue that the priests are devoted to God, and because of that, family and marriage clouds that. I don't agree with that, but that's probably what they'd say. Bob Rafik says, will they stay progressive? I hear Pope Francis shored up the cardinals pretty well. Only time will tell. Nikki says, I'm Greek Orthodox, and yes, they marry. Angus says, the loss of relevance is very much connected with all of the options in the poll. Right, they're all factors, obviously. Rabbis can be in same-sex marriages? I have watched Conclave. I said that earlier in the stream. Like, couldn't have been a better time to put that out, pretty much. I guess maybe it was a little early, but... Inlay says, Eastern Catholic churches, which are in communion with Rome, allow for married priests, so there is space to change over time. I get that. Most religions allow priests to marry. It may only be Catholic priests who aren't. Let me see. Are Catholic priests the only ones that can't marry? Catholic priests are not the only clergy who take a vow of celibacy or remain unmarried, but the Latin Rite Roman Catholic Church is the most prominent institution that officially requires celibacy as a universal norm for its priests. Thank you, Angus, for becoming a member. I appreciate that. I don't know, Scooby Snacks, if all denominations of Judaism can be in same-sex marriages. Can rabbis be in same-sex marriages? Yes, rabbis can be in same-sex marriages, but it depends heavily on the denomination of Judaism. Reform Judaism, yes. Conservative Judaism, yes, as of recent years. And Orthodox Judaism, no. That's according to my research. Dennis says, priests used to be able to marry until Pope Gregory the 7th, 1074, laid the hammer down. Ada as says, religion as a whole has to go. Sorry, every religion has simply caused more harm than any good. Just facts. I agree religion has caused a lot of harm. Has it caused more harm than good? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how you'd ever measure that. Inlay says, the one thing about being Catholic is that everything is forgiven. So if they use the doctrine in 200 years, there may be women and gay priests. There are 2,000-year-old, so change is slow. Yeah. Ada Az says, religion is a fishbowl, spirituality is the ocean. Find your way. Faith is an individual thing. I think I agree with that, generally speaking. Vladimir Plantin's response to what's one thing you wish the Catholic Church would change? They say, I think the Catholic Church should do more to protect those under the practice, such as minors from sexual abuse, for example. I totally agree. All right, our next question. A lot of people talked about their loss of relevance in a modern society, right, earlier. And also we talked about, the generational divide, especially with these new generations like Gen Z, Gen Alpha. How are they going to adapt to the Catholic Church? How is a new pope going to help them adapt to a Catholic Church? My next question for you all is, if you could rebrand the Catholic Church for younger generations, what's the first change you'd make? All right, the next question is up. Nikki says, people ruin everything, like religion and politics. That's a good point. Is religion in and of itself bad? No. But do people manipulate it? Absolutely. Blasphemy is one exception with respect to forgiveness. Is that true? That's crazy if that's true. If you could rebrand the Catholic Church for younger generation, what's the first change you'd make? That's the question posed right now. Dennis says, be less dogmatic and more accepting of others. Bob says, not the outfits. I live for the outfits. Dude, the outfits are sick, honestly. Even in Conclave, like the costume design was so good. Kate A says, they need some younger people in the Vatican. I agree with that. I would be cool with seeing a young pope, honestly. Suzanne AP says, I'm not a fan of religion, but it gives people a sense of community. I run a photography group. Many people want to join. To be part of a community of like-minded people, religion offers that everywhere. I agree with that. Michael Yu says, let women have equal rights. Lily says, remove the celibacy rule. Sexual abuse in the Catholic Church has decimated its credibility. This would help, though would not eliminate it, of course. I think it would help a lot, yeah. Kev says, next pope cannot go backwards. He/she, well, it's going to be he because they don't allow women to be popes yet. He must be the opposite of Trump and denounce him. I agree. I think this pope probably wasn't the biggest fan of Trump. I mean, this Pope Francis was very much an advocate for immigrants and the downtrodden. Do you see Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet that today evil is being defeated by that? No way. Did she say that in reference to Pope Francis or just randomly? Never Froggy says, one thing I think is a positive aspect of Catholicism is the justification through faith and acts. Philip H says, you can have community without the poison of religion. Yeah, of course you can. But think about how many people religion brings together. You know, I don't know if anything can bring people together as in a force the same as religion. The Pope never demonstratively denounced Trump by name, always indirectly. Francis, in many ways, was the opposite of Trump, particularly in their views of both immigration and climate change, among other topics. No doubt. I would vote for, if Pope Francis ran for president, I would vote for him in a heartbeat over Trump. Nikki says, can you imagine right before your death you meet J.D. Vance? It's like an exorcist meeting the demon. That is a funny meme going around, I have to say. Ada says, religion brings people together, but what do they do while they are together? Just bask in their community while dividing everyone else on the outside. I definitely think a lot of religious people do that. I don't think all religious people do that, but I definitely think a lot of religious people do that. Ruth Mary says, from what I've read, the relationship between Pope Francis and Trump/Vance was strained, and that's being kind. There's a photo of Pope Francis next to Trump, and the expression says it all. Yeah, I think even Trump's statement today was kind of meh. Donald Trump brings together his opposition more than religion. That's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point. All right. Our next question is, is faith declining because people changed or because the institution didn't? That's the next question I'm posing to you all. One of Pope Francis's final acts was to chastise J.D. Vance. Is that true? I didn't hear about that. By not denouncing Trump by name, MAGA machine can spin their message to fit their agenda. They always do. Vladimir says, I would doubt J.D. Vance had to do with Francis's death. He's been in poor health. It's a joke, Vladimir, where everybody's joking. Nobody actually thinks that it has anything to do with anything. Inlay says, Trump's Easter message was the worst thing I've seen in my life. I don't even feel like looking at it. I saw bits of it. It's not even worth my time. Can you imagine Matt Gaetz as the next pope? Come on, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. Why do you think that faith is declining? I think that's just a fact. I think less people consider themselves Catholic than they do 20 years ago. I mean, I can look it up to be certain, but have Catholic numbers decreased in the U.S.? It says, this is from Pew Research. Decline of Christianity in the U.S. has slowed, may have leveled off. Well, I guess this is just Christianity, but percent of adults who identify as Christians in 2007, it was 78%. In 2024, it was 63%. So even in the last less than 20 years, it's gone down quite a bit. Everybody's saying it's my question about faith declining is a mixture of both, because people change and the institution didn't. Me Want Taco says, I predict the next pope is going to be black. That's possible. I know Catholicism is pretty big in Africa. Inlay says, faith is retreating across the world since the beginning of the 21st century. Between 2007 and 2019, the importance of God declined on average in 39 of 44 countries analyzed. Dennis says that the people definitely changed. The access to information in the last 100 years is truly remarkable. Yolanda says, Catholic churches were packed to the doors in the 70s and 80s. Now there's less than 50 attend locally. Only Islamic faith is on an upward trend. Jeanette says religion is flawed because man is flawed. I agree with that. Why not a woman as pope? Rules got to change with the people. I mean, I'm all for a woman pope, but it's not going to happen now because they'd have to. I mean, I guess maybe who would change? I think a pope has to change that rule, right? The next post will be a trans man. That's not going to happen. Ten facts about U.S. Catholics. Today, 20% of U.S. adults describe themselves as Catholics. This percentage has been generally stable since 2014, but it's slightly lower than in 2007 when 24% identified as Catholics. Overall, there are about 267 million U.S. adults in 2024. This suggests that there are roughly 53 million Catholic adults nationwide. The share of U.S. Catholics who are Hispanic is rising. Currently, the Catholic population is 54% white, 36% Hispanic, 4% Asian, and 2% black. Since 2007, the share of whites has dropped by 10 percentage points, while the share of Hispanics has grown by 7 percentage points. That's pretty interesting. Only one African pope ever, but no proof he was black. He may have been, we can't know. He was number 46. Is church attendance indication of faith, though? Maybe people express their faith differently today. Maybe. But you have to imagine, like, these numbers are going to be pretty accurate. Like the fact that 24% identify as Catholic in 2007, only 4% since then. I mean, that's a drop. It's a pretty clear drop. Philip says, in terms of his faith declining because people changed or because the institution didn't, Philip says, science and knowledge seem to be the correct answer here. The chances of one God out of tens of thousands being the correct God is so far-fetched. There are probably higher intelligences, though. Bob says, here in the UK, organized religion is declining in every survey that's done, but spirituality is always rising. Billy says, in college, I met a bunch of international students and realized Catholicism is still quite culturally significant in many other countries. I think mostly the people have changed. More than 4 in 10 U.S. Catholics are immigrants or the children of immigrants. That's interesting. Catholics tend to be older than Americans overall. Catholics are spread out relatively evenly across the U.S. Interesting. Racial ethnic makeup of U.S. Catholics population by region. So most in the Northeast are white. Most in the Midwest are white. Most in the South are Hispanic, and most in the West are Hispanic. That's interesting. It's interesting, especially because, you know, this increase of Hispanic folk in the U.S. and the fact that a lot of them went further right. I mean, this could explain it because they're all Catholic. Rolo says, Sam, why are you discussing this? What's going on? Watch the beginning of the episode. Again, it'll explain it. Lily says, like I said before, I think the sex abuse scandals have rocked that region. If you don't trust your priest, you aren't going to go to church and entrust your children with them. Yeah, you're not wrong. Rachel says, I responded Catholic on surveys, but haven't practiced in a long time, mostly because I don't have the time and because I don't want to hear American conservative talking points. That's interesting. I mean, I'm sure you can find progressive Catholic churches pretty much anywhere in the country, but maybe not. I don't know. Patrick says, I don't know if the church institution has not changed. The Pope said gay people can go to heaven, climate change is real, and advocated for a lot of social change. I just think religion itself is becoming old. I think that's a good point. Angus says Trump's immigration policies could affect the percentage of Roman Catholics. Latinos have a very high RC Roman Catholic percentage. That's true. Let me see. Actually, I'm interested to see the rest of this list. More than 1/3 of U.S. Catholics have a bachelor's degree, 35%. About 3 in 10 U.S. Catholics say they attend Mass weekly or more often. About half of Catholics who register to vote are registered to vote, 53%, identify or lean towards the Republican Party, while 43% affiliate with the Democratic Party. Interesting. Interesting if you look at this, though. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I just clicked this one. Let's just go back. If you look at this right now, at least as of March 4th, 2024, Hispanic Catholics leaned pretty Dem. I wonder if that's changing. Jeanette says, I think faith and spirituality can be independent of religion. I totally agree with that. Progressive and Catholic is an oxymoron. Then how would you describe Pope Francis's reign then? Because he did a lot of things that the Catholic Church has never done before. So how could that not be progressive? He's more progressive on climate change than the American GOP. Kev Chata says movie streaming services have caused a lot of people to disconnect from their communities. I don't know if it's movie streaming services alone, but certainly the digital takeover of our society has certainly made a lot of people disconnect. The more religious you are, usually it means the less spiritual you are. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. I never thought about it like that before. Nine, while the Catholic Church opposes abortion, 59% of Catholics say abortion should be legal. That's very interesting. And 10, roughly 3/4 of Catholics, 78%, view Pope Francis favorably. That's a pretty good rating. Higher. Oh, this is over time. I think he's higher than Benedict for sure. Not as high as Paul II. That was interesting. What percentage of Latin America is Catholic? In Latin America, approximately 54% of the population identifies as Catholic. This figure is a significant decrease from 70% recorded in 2010. 70% recorded in 2010. Oh, calm down. Still, the vast majority is Catholic. There's only 4 likes. No, there's 39 likes. Oh, you scared me, Philip H. Guys, if you haven't liked the stream, please like it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know I'm live. What country has the... Argentina is 74% Catholic. No. Yes. The highest is Paraguay, then Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. What's the lowest? Oops. Belize, Uruguay, Cuba, Guatemala, Honduras. They got a lot of Protestants. Which country has the most Protestants? Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, Central American countries. Inlay says, because some think progressive means super far left, give people $40 an hour minimum wage instead of progressive meaning implementing social reform or new liberal common sense ideas. Interesting. Baby, calm down. That song is stuck in my head. New poll. Who should be the next pope? Who should be the next pope? A reformer, a traditionalist, a total outsider, what should be the 4th option? We'll just do those 3. A reformer, a traditionalist, A total outsider. Yeah, we'll do those. The poll's live. I can't imagine my audience is going to say a traditionalist, but I guess, you never know. Inlay says, anyone that doesn't go backwards on women, gay, forgiveness ideas. I agree with you. They have to keep pushing forward. They can't go to somebody who's less progressive than Pope Francis. I think that might hurt the church really badly. It seems as though the Pope is not that influential. I don't know about that. The Pope is pretty influential, at least in the USA. I mean, at this point, it's like the royal family just there for tradition. Americans are not really listening to the Pope closely. I think you're underestimating the Pope's reach. That's my opinion, but 74% said the next pope should be a reformer. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi. Is that from Conclave? Baby, calm down. God, that song's stuck in my head. Oh no, he's a real guy. Let's see, who would be the next pope? Bro, this is literally the movie Conclave IRL. John says a Canadian pope would be good. I think they're going to keep going. I don't know. My prediction would be they keep going with Latin American folks, given the fact that it's so. Let me check about rate of Catholicism in Africa. %18 of the continent's population. So still the continent of South America has a higher percentage. But apparently Africa had the biggest increase in Catholics. Catholic by country, Africa. According to the CI Factbook and the Pew Research Center, the 5 countries with the largest number of Catholics are in decreasing order: Brazil, Mexico, Philippines, United States, Democratic Republic of Congo. They could do a Portuguese, they could do a Brazilian pope. That would be interesting. They could do an African one too. Afghanistan has 0% Catholics. How can less than or greater than 0.1 be bigger than 0? Okay, Vatican City 100%. East Timor 97% Catholic. Where is East Timor? Southeast Asia. Oh, Timor-Leste. Interesting. Who would have thunk it? Paraguay, wow, huge amount of Catholics. Croatia, huge amount. That's a pretty. Portugal, huge amount of Catholics. I didn't know the Philippines had so many Catholics. Imagine a Filipino pope. That would be interesting. Rachel says many Latin American immigrants are Catholics and targeted for deportation. I'm disappointed with American Catholic leaders who side with evangelical nationalists over fellow Catholics by not speaking out. I hear you. Guys, I'm going to do a quick donation goal. Remember, I'm doing this full time now, so if you're able, I'd much appreciate it. Where is Italy on this list? Huh. Why do they give 500 different numbers for Italy? Central Africa is the biggest Catholic. 37 million Catholics in 135 million Catholics in Africa. A lot more in the America, but how much in South America? All right, there's still more in South America than in all of Africa. There's still more in North America than in Africa. I think they're going to keep with something here. South America, Central America. Maybe even Portugal. Dennis says, I have "What if God was one of us" stuck in my head. What if God was one of us? All right. 72% say the next pope should be a reformer. 20% say a total outsider, and only 8% say a traditionalist. Next poll. Do you have a favorable view on Pope Francis? Curious to see what you guys, yes or no. I'm still guessing a South American pope, but who knows? Let's see who will be the next pope. Pietro Parolin, a 70-year-old Italian guy, seen as a moderate. Hold on, let me zoom in a little bit more. Seen as a moderate continuity candidate, Parolin was close to Francis. He has been the Vatican's Secretary of State since 2013, playing a key role in diplomatic affairs, including delicate negotiations with China and the governments in the Middle East. He is regarded as a reliable and trusted papal representative by secular diplomats. What the hell? Diplomats. In 2018, he was the driving force behind a controversial agreement with the Chinese government on the appointment of bishops, criticized by some as a sellout to the communist regime. Pauline's critics see him as a modernist and a pragmatist who places ideology and diplomacy solutions above hard truths of the faith. To his supporters, why can't I speak right now? To his supporters, he is a courageous idealist and avid proponent of peace. He seems okay. Pietro Parolin. Luis Antonio Tagli, Filipino. We're talking about Filipinos. Tagli, a former Archbishop of Manila, would be the first Asian pope, the region with the fastest growing Catholic population. At one time, he was considered to be Francis's preferred successor and a strong contender to continue the late pope's progressive agenda, but recently appears to have fallen out of favor. He suggests that the Catholic Church's stance on gay and divorced couples is too harsh, but has opposed abortion rights in the Philippines. Peter Turkson of Ghana. Turkson would be the first black pope in centuries. He has been vocal on issues such as climate change, poverty, and economic justice, while affirming the Church's traditional positions on the priesthood, marriage between a man and a woman, and homosexuality. However, his views on the latter have loosened, and he has argued that laws in many African countries are too harsh. And most of these guys seem okay so far. Pedro Erdo of Hungary, 72. Who's the youngest guy so far? This Filipino guy? A leading conservative candidate, Erdo has been a strong advocate for traditional Catholic teachings and doctrine. He would represent a big shift away from Francis's approach. He is widely regarded as a great intellect and a man of culture. Erdo was a favorite of the late Cardinal George Pell, who believed he would restore the rule of law in the post-Francis Vatican. In 2015, Erdo appeared to align himself with Hungary's national prime minister, Viktor Orban. All right, this guy's out. This guy's out. Lily says they ain't picking any black pope. Trust. I don't know. I'm not as... Here's Matteo Zuppi. Appointed a cardinal by Francis in 2019, Zuppi is considered to be on the progressive wing of the church and would be expected to continue Francis's legacy, sharing the late pope's concern for the poor and marginalized. He is relatively liberal on same-sex relationships. 2 years ago, Francis made him the Vatican peace envoy for Ukraine, in which capacity he visited Moscow to encourage gestures of humanity. While there, he met with Patriarch Kirill, the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church and Vladimir Putin's ally. He also met with Volodymyr Zelensky. This guy seems pretty good. Jose Tolentino Calaca de Mendonca. That's quite a name. Tolentino is one of the youngest... Oh, he's only 59. Potential successors to Francis, which could count against him. Ambitious cardinals may not want to wait another 20 or 30 years before another shot at the top job. He has attracted controversy for sympathizing with tolerant views on same-sex relationships and allying himself with feminist Benedictine sister who favors women's ordination and is pro-choice. He was close to Francis on most issues and argues that the church must engage with modern culture. There's some interesting picks here. Mario Grech, 68, Malta. Grech was seen as a traditionalist but began to embrace more progressive views after Francis was elected in 2013. His supporters argue that his changing opinion shows his capacity for growth and change. He has criticized European political leaders who sought to limit the activities of NGO ships and has expressed support for female deacons. Okay. Oh my God, how do you say this name? Pier Battista Pizzaballa, 60. Since 2020, Pizzaballa has been the latrin... why can't I speak? Of Jerusalem. A crucial role in advocating for the Christian minority in the Holy Land after Hamas's attack on Israel. Oh, thank you, Bob, for your donation. I like your it's not the news, but it's news show. I'm not sure what you're saying exactly. You like that? You like this format? It's not like just watching CNN. It's actually talking about a topic in depth. Is that what you're saying? Then it says when the youngest candidate is 67, that's a problem. I think the youngest was 59. 59. But I mean, guys, they're not going to appoint a 20-year-old. You know, they're not going to appoint a 30-year-old. After Hamas's attack on Israel, Pizzaballa offered himself as a hostage in exchange for children who were being held by Hamas in Gaza. Wow, that's pretty heroic. He visited Gaza in May 2024 after months of negotiation. He would be expected to continue some aspects of Francis's relationship or leadership of the church, but has made few public statements on controversial issues. Robert Serra, 79. This guy's too old. Serra is a traditional Orthodox cardinal who at one time sought to present himself as a parallel authority to Francis. This guy's out. This guy's out. He's too old. He's too traditional. Who do I like the best? Who do you guys like the best? Caden says popes still need experience, and I think that's the thing. U.S. Catholics usually like to see many years of devotion to Christ before they ascend to the highest office in the church. Yeah, I mean, I guess when I meant young, I meant like not this guy. You know, not an 80-year-old. I would say 60 is young, 59 is young. I would say this guy is fairly young. I would say like, oh wait. I would say late 50s into your like 60s. Maybe not 69, but 67 is probably the limit. Thank you, Jeanette, for your donation. I appreciate that. I kind of like the Filipino guy. This guy. First Asian Pope. He's not super old. He's 67. He's in the region with the fastest growing Catholic population. He was once considered to be his preferred successor by Francis. That's a good sign. He wants to continue the late Pope's progressive agenda. And he says that gay and divorced couples, their stance is too harsh. He's opposed abortion rights, but you can't have it all. I don't know about this guy. The whole China thing, I don't know. He's a little too traditional on priesthood, marriage, stuff like that. This guy might be the worst. This guy's okay. I like this guy. I think this guy might even be top for me too. This guy's meh. This guy's too unknown. This guy is second to last place. All right, I'm gonna rank them. You guys ready? How should I do this? Can I use Google Drive without being signed in? No. It's annoying. Let me just do a Google, or not a Google Doc, a Word document. Word to your mother. Tier list? Should we? Potential Pope tier list? I'm just going to do a ranking. I'm not going to do a tier list. There's too little to do a tier list. Patrick Murray says, I think I should be the next Pope. All right, Patrick. Present your shit, bro. Present your platform. Derek says, I think the question is obvious. Of course, the church will survive. The way to adjust the question for deeper analysis would be if it survives in a particular region. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my title isn't the most academic title in the world. You know, this is YouTube. So, Shika says, I like the Portuguese guy, Filipino guy second. All right, let's do it. Let's do a ranking. Okay. One is... Who was it again? This guy. Jose from Portugal. So number 1 is Jose. I'm not going to say his full name. Oh, you guys can't see this yet. Wait. Here we go. Number 1 is the guy from Portugal. Can I bring in his picture? That's the question. Oh, come on. Number 2, I would say, is the Filipino guy. You never thought we'd be making a tier, you know. A Pope that plays GeoGuessr. Now that would be cool. So far, 88% people think that have a favorable view on Pope Francis. All right, who's next? Let me just share my screen. Can I do that? Yes. Here we go. This is better. Who's next? I feel like there's a clear 1-2 in my mind. This guy, I'm not sure. This guy, not. This guy, definitely not. Zupe's not bad. This guy, yeah. Zupe's next, for sure. Next up is Matteo Zuppi at number 3. Who's 4th, you guys think? Maybe this guy? He's sort of a middle of the road type guy, that first guy. I don't know, this guy is just too unknown. I mean, I like his stance about, you know, like sacrificing himself. I'm going to go, this guy's not bad. I mean, he doesn't believe in gay marriage or priesthood for women, but he does say, I'm going to go Pietro at number 4. And then at number 5, I'm going to go, number 5, I'm going to go Peter Turkson. So I mean, this guy I have no idea about. I like his stance and what he's doing in Israel, but it says that he hasn't said anything about but he's made few public statements on controversial issues. It's hard to judge him. At least Peter Turkson has said, you know, like, let's chill on like the horrific laws we have against bad people. I mean, not bad people, gay people. Sorry. Cardinal Pietro is the pick for number 1. Pizzaball could be up there. According to online betting guides, Cardinal Pietro is currently the front runner at 4-1, followed by Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, then Peter Turkson, and then Peter Erdo. So this guy is the front runner, according to you guys. I'll put this guy next, even though he's not great. And then, who's the Viktor Orban sympathizer? He's definitely going last. Oh, I forgot about this guy, Mario Gretsch. He can go before Robert Serra. Baby, come down. And then this guy's last. Here's my definitive list as a non-Catholic of my personal ranking of who should be the next pope. Boom. Jose first, Luis second, Mateo third, Pietro fourth, Peter Turkson 5, Pier Battista Pizzaballa 6, Mario Gretsch 7, Robert Serra 8, Peter Erdo 9. At 59, too young. I mean, not in my mind. That's probably a good thing. Progressive Pope tier list sounds like a YouTube short idea. It does. Yes, it does. Jewish man ranks potential popes. Sean says, I went to Catholic school for 13 years. The cardinal in my state came to our school and borderline forced us to go to the March for Our Life. Yeah, Francis may have been a good guy, but yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's perfect at all. In 1032, the Catholics had a 20-year-old pope. Is that true? In the Vatican, perhaps too young at 59. No, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying this is my list. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. This is not a prediction. This is my own personal ranking based off of that article and the little blurb below them about each potential pope. I don't think they have ranked choice voting, do they? I think they just get one vote, and the winner has to get like a certain majority, I think, if the conclave is accurate. Did the Pope announce who he'd favor to replace him? I don't think so, but I think, like, sort of unofficially, I think it was this guy. I think they said maybe this guy, but he's kind of fallen out of favor recently. Sean says, kind of wild how he met JD Vance yesterday and then goes, yeah, I'm out. Oh, that's hilarious. Poor JD. I feel so not sorry for him. Baby, come down. What was it to look up? Betting odds. Next Pope. What? What is this article? Let's try the Asbury Park Press. This is the last betting odds according to BetUS. Oh, according to BetUS, the Filipino guy is even. Then Pierto. What? None of these guys are even on that other list. Mark Ouellette. Oh, he's Canadian. We'll just have to wait and see. All right. These topic-based ones will be a little bit tighter because I want them to have some replay value as well. I don't want them to just live as lives. So our final poll of this discussion period is: will the Catholic Church be larger or smaller in 50 years? Larger, smaller. I'm going to do a third option. Non-existent. I mean, that's almost impossible, but let's add it. JD gave the Pope a dating drug. That's messed up, guys. Come on. Namby says smaller, much smaller, after the baby boomers are no longer here, in my opinion. They got to modernize. For sure. I'm sure they have some social media presence, but more would be better probably for them. How does the Catholic Church compare to 50 years ago? Let me ask ChatGPT. Has the Catholic Church gotten larger or smaller in the last 50 years? According to ChatGPT, the global trend, the Catholic Church has grown overall. Over the last 50 years, the global number of Catholics has increased, mainly due to the population growth in the global south, especially Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia. In 1970, there were about 653 million Catholics worldwide. In the 2020s, 1.36 billion Catholics worldwide. That's more than double over 50 years. But there's the decline in the West. While global numbers are up, the Catholic Church has significantly shrunk in Europe and North America. U.S. Mass attendance has dropped from about 55% weekly in the 1960s to only 17 to 20% today. Europe has seen even sharper declines, with countries like France, Germany, and Netherlands experiencing Mass attendance below 10%. It's growing in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Let me ask, what about adjusted for population growth? What about adjusted for overall world population growth? The church has grown in absolute numbers, but has slightly decreased as a percentage of the global population. In 1970, about 17.6% of the world identified as Catholic. In 2024, only 17.2%. So while it did go up in sheer numbers, in terms of percentages, it did go down. So I would say it got smaller, even though the numbers grew. Mark Sav says, bookmakers didn't consider Francis even as a front runner in the lead up to the 2013 selection, so who knows? Interesting. All right. If you feel like donating these last couple seconds, I'd much appreciate it. Checking out the poll. Will the Catholic Church be larger or smaller in 50 years? 64% of you said smaller. Only 36% say larger. And when I mean smaller or larger, I mean percentage-wise. I don't mean, obviously, the world population has exploded, and it's going to keep growing. Well, actually, I'm not sure, but probably. I'm talking more percentage-wise. And most of you think smaller. I tend to agree, and I think this selection will be a defining factor of if it gets larger or smaller and the rate at which it gets larger and or smaller. I appreciate you all for watching. This is sort of my new format if you didn't miss it. I'll be picking one topic on Mondays and Wednesdays. It might be current events oriented. It might be in the news. It might not be. It might be about food or culture or music or film. And I just want to have a discussion with you all. And I come to these as a curious person, not as an expert. And I've already learned a ton today just from doing this, from you all, from just the conversation we're bouncing off each other, from looking stuff up as we're talking. So I thought it was a grand success. Dennis says, I like this tighter format. Let me do that quick poll before I sign off on this one. Do you like this new format? Yes or no? And yeah, I won't be as live as long, and I might be live a little bit later in the day because these take a little bit of prep. Not a ton, but a little bit of prep. Jeanette says, great show. Keep it up, dude. Thank you. Louise says, I was raised Catholic but left the church, but Pope Francis gave me hope that the church would be better. I'm sad that he's gone. He was truly a great person. %, are saying yes so far. Lily says, I love this format. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Over the last couple of days, I've been researching a lot about other streamers, and I've been looking at other people who do political streams, and just like people like Hassan or people like, what's her name? Some other Twitch streamer. And like, I was watching, I was like, I don't enjoy watching these. So why would I do it? You know what I mean? And not saying this is some perfect format and I've cracked the code, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to see what works best. And I'm not saying they suck or their format's terrible, but we're still doing GeoGuessr. So if you weren't here for the beginning, Mondays and Wednesdays are the discussion/debate, like this format. Tuesdays and Thursdays are just the post show, the typical way the post show does, chatting about politics, chatting about whatever. And then Fridays and the weekends, if I can, will be gaming streams. So don't you worry. All right. 100% like this new format. So stay tuned. I might even do some community posts, and be like, hey, give me some things that you want to have a discussion debate about on Mondays and Tuesdays. and we'll do it. Are you doing a draft stream? That's an interesting question. Probably not, because we're going to be live on Lichtman Live on Thursday, so probably not. All right, folks, again, I want to keep these sort of tighter so that they have some replay power and people can come back and watch them, and they're a little bit more evergreen too. All right, folks, have a good one.